So I'm here with Kalle Grill, and we're going to talk about the philosophical consultation. So my first question to you will be the same as I ask any practitioner. What is a philosophical consultation?
It's a conversation with the person about whatever they want to talk about, and it's sort of investigative or explorative, inquiring. With me, it's fairly analytical. So I take it upon myself to with the person coming, the client or the guest, to investigate their topic, their problem, their issue, really trying to understand it and sort of dig into it and get a deeper, maybe fuller understanding and perspective of whatever is on their mind.
Hmm. And can you explain what you mean by you say the conversation is analytical? What does that mean?
It means that I want to really understand. I guess understanding is sort of curious. I allow myself to be curious. Also, I want to be. That's maybe more about the emotional approach I have, but something I sort of learned from the education in this I had from Oslo, the Oslo school with Helge and Henning, etc. Persons that you and I know. Um, so I'm curious, but my curiosity then drives me to really understand what they think and what goes on in their mind, their sort of their worldview. I like to think, and this drives me to ask questions, make distinctions, maybe try out arguments sometimes, and yeah, I do kind of conceptual analysis. You might say, what do you mean with these words? When you say this about your behavior, what happened? What does that mean for you? Yeah, dig into their own concepts, their own understanding.
So what would be, let's say, the objective of this conversation?
Well, I mean, in my experience, if at least if someone is paying for it, they have some kind of issue. They have a problem they face, or they have a choice they need to make, or something isn't working perfectly in their life, and they want some kind of. I mean, they might want a resolution. They might want to get to understand or know what they want to choose, or they have a concrete problem, social problem or something they want to solve. So that can, and then they have that goal-oriented aim, and that's fine by me. We can take that on, and the method, of course, is talking and getting clarity and understanding. But that might often, I think, lead to something more sort of becoming more functional or solving practical problems. Or they might have a more broad, meaning of life kind of issue. Like I always wanted to talk to a philosopher about these things, but I never got the chance. And now I found out about you, and now I can really finally talk to someone about this important, just theoretical, abstract pondering they have. So I mean, they set the aim really. I mean, if their aim is something I can't help them with, then of course I have to let them know. But otherwise, yeah, I guess I allow them to set the agenda really. I mean, I have the methods, I have some ideas, but they set the aim.
So, are there any kind of people, any type of visitors that you would not work with, where you decide, okay, now this is not for me, or maybe they shouldn't be talking to a philosopher, maybe they should be talking to someone else, or
Mm.
you a priori take on anyone?
Yeah, yeah, it hasn't happened yet. I mean, I had one client that I felt like didn't help. We didn't get anywhere, and not sure why, but it might have been something psychological that I didn't understand. It was quite a sort of high energy, sort of driven. This person was not happy with their life, and sort of becoming a bit repetitive, and I just couldn't get the sort of relaxed conversational atmosphere, I guess, that I think I need to sort of to be of help. That happened, but I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure what this person would have needed. Maybe a psychologist, maybe. I know there are psychiatric conditions that I think, theoretically could make someone not, suitable or not someone I couldn't help. Uh, but I haven't seen that, and I guess if I see it, I would call it out, or ask politely about this. And of course, I take the liberty of refusing a client that I don't think I can help. I mean, any professional should do that. If someone comes to a doctor with asking for financial advice, obviously the doctor should say, "Can't help you. You should probably see an economist," and so on and so forth.
So since you're talking about helping, philosophical consultation, would you classify it as a sort of therapy, or no, you would say it's something else?
Yeah, I avoid the word therapy because I think that's quite strongly associated with sort of medical or health related professions and services. I'm more open to calling it therapeutic because I think that word is used sort of non-metaphorically about things like reading a book or talking to friends or relaxing, having a vacation. It was quite a therapeutic summer, someone might say, and not just as a metaphor. You can also call things therapy. Therapy for me is reading a book or having a beer. People might say this, but then I think it's more metaphorical sense. So yeah, I don't. If someone asks me, is this therapy? I would say no, not in the sense that it's not health or medical oriented. It's not in that context. I don't provide health services. So yeah, so in that sense, no, it's not therapy.
But it can have therapeutical effects.
Yeah, exactly. And in a broader sense, is it therapy in the sense of helping? I mean, this word has been used in different ways in different epochs of human history. And I mean, if you go back to the old Greek word, as I understand it, it was used quite widely for just helping people medically or not. But yeah, so if someone wants to insist that no, it's therapy for me, then I'm not going to object either.
Yeah. And when you say helping, is it possible to pinpoint what is the kind of help you think you can provide? Is it to solve their problems or help them understand their issues, or what kind of help would you say that you can give?
Well, like I said, I mean, people have come to me and said, should I end my relationship or not? What should I study? Should I take this trip or not? And have a very sort of practical aim with coming to me. And then I think that's welcome. Okay, let's talk about this. And my view is that it will most likely help them to make a decision, to have a conversation with me. But of course, I don't help them by, if it's a study question, as a study counselor might do, but presenting alternatives or making a personality test or something like that. We talk about values and what they're after, how they view different things, who they are. Maybe sometime when they learned something that they felt was sort of when did you get an insight about something of what is a good occasion of learning in your life, and you maybe build from that and understand what they mean by learning things and what they want to learn, how they want to understand the world, or what they want their education to be for. Is it for learning, or is it more for getting a job, getting financial security, providing for a family? What's the aim? And see how sort of deep or authentic that aim is, etc. So all this is to say that I think what I might help people with is to provide more clarity around their own perception, their views, their values. My company, when I do this, is called Tankereda in Swedish. And that is difficult to translate, maybe. It's a bit of a play with words. But I guess it means clarity of thought, or maybe sort of orderly thoughts. Tanke is thought, and reda is both a noun and a verb. So it can both mean to have things in order and also to sort of go about finding order or clarity. And I think that's generally helpful.
So clarifying the confused thoughts that you might have in your mind.
Yeah.
And help you think maybe in a more constructive, more, let's say, rational way about your issues.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, constructive, I guess, also is not maybe the direct method, but to be more clear, to understand. I mean, it could even be confusing, right? I mean, things could come up that they haven't thought about, and they might leave me more confused. That could happen, and it doesn't have to be a problem. Then do they have more order, more clarity of thought, not in the moment, but they have discovered that there are things that they hadn't brought into their conscious awareness. And now we have sort of brought them in. And that means that in the longer perspective, they can now have sort of more clarity in a wider domain of thought. But that might be experienced as confusing or bewildering and also uncomfortable in the moment. So I'm not aiming to have people have like a very positive sense of, oh, everything is clear. That would be maybe more like a coaching or something. I have maybe, things aren't clear sometimes. Things aren't easy. But then to have clarity around the lack of the uncertainties, the contradictions, the tensions that exist. So it's not about having like a simplified or a simple view, or now I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life kind of feeling. So that might happen. It's more about, clarity about the messiness of thought and life.
Yeah, and also I want to ask you about if you think there are any ethical considerations that you need to take as a philosopher in a discussion with a client. You said, it can be difficult, it can feel problematic, maybe not so comfortable all the time. So, how do you view this ethical aspect of it?
Well, when you already touched on, being clear on what you can deliver or not, like what the service is. And this is particularly important because people might not know it's such an uncommon thing. So if they go to the hairdresser or a financial advisor or a doctor, I mean, these are more common things and they know what to expect. So I often, unless I understand, from the interaction beforehand that they know approximately what's going to happen or what I can provide, then I make sure to just say a few words about that. And I think that's an ethical requirement to sort of not start to deliver something that they're not aware of what it is. But otherwise, there's so many different methods, and I guess my method, inspired by this Oslo school, is quite respectful or quite allowing it's always transparent. So often when I say something, if I have like an input of sorts, which I've talked so much about investigating their worldview, but part of that can be throwing things in. What do you think about this idea from wherever, some philosopher or some authority or some thinker? Yeah. So then often I explain. I say this because I thought, or I have a question, and I explain why I have the question. So I want to avoid what's common in some therapies, speaking of therapy, to sort of go into a role where they can project on me, or where I sort of have I have an agenda about what's going on in the room that they're not party to. And by avoiding this and being more straight and transparent, I think the conversation becomes more like a talk between friends, or like a consultation in that sort of basically respectful sense, when they both know what's going on. And that avoids, I think, some ethical issues. But I haven't chosen this method because of the ethics. It's sort of more of a positive side effect for me, that I don't feel it's so complicated. We're just talking, and they know what goes on, and they know why I say things. But it can have like profound effects. I had this one example I mentioned. I more felt like we didn't get anywhere. I don't think it caused any harm. I don't have any examples from my own practice of things where I've been in the least concerned that someone was sort of harmed or worse off. But of course it could happen. And if someone would feel very, I see things going the wrong way somehow, when they get really confused, and I'm afraid they're going to go home and do something stupid, make a decision that they, it's going to have long-term effects or something. Then I guess I think I do have a responsibility for that. We always do, just as a human being. Just if I encounter someone in town and just start talking to them, I always have some responsibility for what my interactions, cause in other people. So in that sense, ethics is important. And in this context, you can have the authority, just like a teacher or anyone else. They might possibly be over attentive to what I think or my questions and so forth. So of course I should be aware of the situation and my possible influence.
Yeah.
Maybe too long an answer, maybe.
No, it was good. I don't mind long answers.
Good.
So finally, is there something else you would like to mention? Maybe something we forgot to talk about? Or... something you want to add?
Mm, I just wish more people would try it, and not with me necessarily, but uh, yeah, more reflection and more thing. And I guess maybe just focus on something we haven't talked about explicitly. The beauty of two people or more, but say two people, focusing on one person's thoughts or views. That's part of the magic of this. And it happens with all kinds of experts when you talk to. But in the with the philosophical consultation, it's not about curing. We talked about that. It's not about solving a problem necessarily. It could be, but that's the second hand. Sort of you step back from that and you go into understanding. And so I think really anyone, I mean, without even philosophical knowledge or philosophical consultation expertise, I sort of would encourage people to just take a friend and just decide that for this hour we're going to talk about this one of the people's views on something, and the other person is going to be a helper. Just try to understand as best they can. I tell students do this sometimes. I pair them up, and they get to talk about how their studies are going, and they always enjoy it. And to many people, it's new. It's like, wow, I hadn't really taken even half an hour, because conversations are so often back and forth. It's giving and taking, and get associations, and then to take a pause, like, no, I'm not important now, and set myself aside, and I'm just going to focus my attention, fill my mind with this person's thoughts and views. I think that's part of the beauty, and I think that could be something that could easily sort of spread in society. So that's one of my hopes.
Mm. Right, the beauty of the one-to-one.
Yeah, focusing on using having a one-to-one conversation, but not. There's so many beautiful conversations, of course, and they can be flowing and back and forth. Maybe those are the best, the most ideal. But given that there is always sort of this fight for attention, and I mean, Milan Kundera talked about this so beautifully about sort of the interactions we often have as a war for the attention of the other, the war for the ear of the other person, and that often to some extent happens that there's a bit of a struggle. Like, oh, I want to talk about my stuff, and I talk about my vacation, then you want to come in and talk about your vacation, and I talk about my aunt, and you talk about your aunt, and it's a bit, you have to be a bit on edge to when do I get into the conversation and when can I relax. Just get rid of all that and just allow one person to be the center of attention for a while, for a decided time. I think that's part of what we do, which is sort of very easy but very effective.
I think that's a good note to end on. So thank you. Thank you, Kalle.
Thank you.